Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a review discussion. I did one of these a while back, I don't know if you remember, for Paper Mario the Origami King. We're bringing it back this time, except it's better than ever because I have guests, yeah. Introduce yourselves, you people.
You. I'm Ewan Keelik. I do Zelda stuff, and above me is Nehru.
Yay, I'm an Nehru. I also do Zelda stuff.
Hello, I am Edible Incredible. I also do scripted Zelda videos and streams.
I am Tyler, and you'll never guess this, but I also do Zelda stuff.
Wow.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Really?
You wouldn't have thought it, I know.
Wouldn't have guessed it. Yeah, it's almost like we're in this thing called Sheikah Squad, and we've done collabs before. You can go check out on their channels.
What?
Wink, wink, nod, nod. But we're doing a review discussion of Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity here today. I don't even know if I said that yet. It's about Age of Calamity, so there you go. Just gonna go into everything, really. Whatever we feel like, wherever we go, all that. So yeah, I guess we'll just start with a general overview of what we all thought of the game. So, I'm gonna pass it to Nehru first. What do you think? What do you think of this game?
Oh man, oh man, oh man. I love it. It's a very good game. I had really high expectations leading up to it. I was expecting a lot of it, and it delivered almost everything that I wanted out of it. It was a huge improvement over the previous Hyrule Warriors in terms of gameplay, in terms of level design, in terms of interactivity, in terms of even well, I don't know if it was quite an improvement in graphics because the styles are so different, but it was an improvement in almost every way. The story is way better than the first Hyrule Warriors. The first Hyrule Warriors had a nonsense story. The only thing that I think it sort of was a little lackluster in is content, because, you know, the first Hyrule Warriors I put 400 hours into it. This game, I'm feeling like I'm more or less done with it, and I just put my 100th hour in. Now, that being said, 100 hours is still a ton of time to put into a game.
Right.
So that's not necessarily a knock towards it. But in almost every way, I do think that it's superior to the first one. And overall, I think that it's a really excellent game.
Yeah, I was when I first saw the very first trailer, I was stoked, super excited. And then once it released, I heard like just things here and there, people like on the story and stupid minor complaints that, you know, people are overhyped it. So because of that, of course, they are unsatisfied, like people always are. But anyway, so I was kind of pleasantly surprised. So when I first got it, I was like, okay, this is cool. You know, it starts off with like I think it was like the champion quest, like in each region. So I was really curious where it'd go from there. And each of those 4, they weren't anything special. I was just like, okay, I want to get on to whatever's next. So first I was like, I wasn't too sure how much I liked it. I was like, was this really worth 60? I don't know. But then once I got through that, and especially the second half of the story-wise, I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely worth 60. I know Nehru said it doesn't have a lot of content. In my eyes, I mean, I haven't done much of side quests, but it does seem like there's a good amount. More than I thought, at least. And there's some cool plot twists that I was like, wow, that was awesome. Wasn't really expecting the story to be, you know, as in-depth as it was. Not that it was crazy in-depth, but good enough. For sure.
And Tyler?
I'm kind of similar sentiments. I was absolutely hyped for this game going into it. But I was still like super cautiously optimistic in a way because I wasn't huge on the original Hyrule Warriors. And so I was fearful that there was going to be something about this game that just was very off-putting towards me and that I wouldn't like. And upon completing the game, that moment never happened for me, and it was just an endless amount of enjoyment for me. I think narrative-wise, in terms of like the amount of cutscenes that we got, performance from the voice actors and everything, like it was just a super engrossing story for me especially, and for like anybody that would enjoy Breath of the Wild. I feel like would get something out of that to a degree. So yeah, I absolutely love this game. It was the only thing that I was not super keen on was the combat, but then again, that's just that's just kind of personal preference type stuff. So, absolutely loved it. Aside from some minor nitpicks.
Now, Killick, I know that you have actually not played the game.
So I haven't.
We brought you on anyway because we want to hear your opinion. What is it?
I am going to be here for all of the people who purchased it and had to go to work and then can't play. So I'm here for you. I'll be the guy that's like that asks all the questions. Everyone in the classroom's thinking them. No one wants to ask it. I'll be that guy. All right, that's me. But I mean, I love Zelda, so
From like the little, because I know you said you played the demo. From the little bit you played in the demo,
I did. Yeah.
What was your impression of just that?
Of course, I love the game stylistically. I love the Breath of the Wild art style. I mean, there hasn't been a Zelda game that I've been like, it looks kind of gross.
Mm-hmm.
Except maybe Twilight Princess on the Wii, but that's not the game's
The
fault.
wokest thing you've ever said.
I knew somebody was gonna go there. I knew it.
It's only the Wii version.
Oh,
The
man.
GameCube looks exquisite, but wow. Anyway,
Agree to disagree.
so yeah, it looks really cool. I thought the combat was, it was good. I wasn't particularly interested in the Hyrule Warriors in the first one particularly, or the Dynasty Warriors games. So it was kind of, it's definitely on the list to get. I just haven't yet.
For sure.
But yeah, the demo was fun. I liked it a lot. Obviously my favorite part, well, not obviously, but my favorite part were the larger scale battles when you actually kind of had to put yourself to the test, fighting like the bokoblins and stuff like that, the larger enemies rather.
Yeah, like moblins and
Yeah,
what else
no,
is it?
yeah, my bad.
There's a Guardian. Did you try taking on the Guardian?
I think I was naked at that point.
Oh.
So yes.
So that probably wasn't a good idea, but you did it anyway.
Yeah, we did it anyway.
So, myself, I love the game. I've probably made that known if you watched my Let's Play of it. Lots of twists and turns, Story-wise, I have some gripes, but I also have a lot of praise to heap on it for that. And just gameplay-wise, as Nero kind of went into, full, just 10 times better. Like, the Sheikah Runes, just, how everything works. We'll get into more of it here in a little bit, but just, it's much better than the original game. And the original game was already great. I love the original game, but this one's even better, so that's great. That's all of our, basic impressions of the game, I guess. Now we'll get more into, that stuff, yeah, gameplay, story, anything else we have to say.
The nitty-gritty.
Going into just gameplay right away, I guess, then. Any thoughts on gameplay in this game? Dynasty Warriors put back into Zelda for the second time. More time to refine the formula even more. What'd you think?
Wow. It was great. One of the things that I really liked about the original Hyrule Warriors is that they put some effort into making a Dynasty Warriors game feel a little bit more like a Zelda game, in the terms of adding things like Z targeting and having the Zelda control scheme that makes the game's control somewhat similar to Zelda. And that was something that I did really appreciate in the original Hyrule Warriors, and they did the exact same thing here. They put a lot of work in to make the game play very similar to Breath of the Wild. A lot of those mechanics that they added to that game are completely unique to the Warriors games in general, like the last minute dodge. I can't remember what the Breath of the Wild term for it is, but
Flurry Rush,
yeah,
Flurry
Flurry
Rush.
Rush. That's totally new. There are Warriors games with parries, but the way they made it feel almost identical to parrying in Breath of the Wild, and the way you can cut off Guardian legs with Link's sword. They did a lot of work to the gameplay to make it feel like Breath of the Wild, and I think that's why a lot of people who don't usually click with Dynasty Warriors games were able to enjoy it quite a bit because it in many ways really did feel like somewhat similar to Breath of the Wild.
100%.
And I think it's really, really impressive that they managed to capture that.
Yeah, I totally agree. So there's at least for me, maybe I'm slow and didn't realize certain things too quickly, but it seemed like even towards the end of the game, I was discovering little tiny things that I could do in combat. I was like, wow. I was pleasantly surprised to see the combat being a little more fleshed out than I thought. Like for example, there's one person on stream yesterday. I was doing the finale. Like I didn't realize if you do, at least with Link, I'm not sure other characters. I don't know if other characters has arrow, but with Link, if you do backflip, and immediately when you do backflip, you shoot the arrow and it kind of slows down so you can get a pretty precise shot and it can stun the enemy, which is huge.
If you do the backflip, I noticed that when fighting the Blights actually, and it was just a godsend because like those are hard enemies, but when you are able to just like hit them right in the eye and
changes everything,
put up the stun gauge right away, it's just like wow.
Yep, that, and this is way more simplistic and I should have realized this way earlier, but shielding, huge. I would just like spam dodge really, which is awful.
That's what I did.
And I realized you can shield, which I should get used to like parrying. I bet that would make things even more enjoyable. I never really tried it because I was scared. I was on hard mode, by the way. But shielding in general, you can block most. I mean, usually when you get hit, like you're like an animation. So if you get hit twice, of course, you get wrecked. But you could block most stuff if you stay precise and there's no bokoblin hits you in the back or whatever. But yeah, definitely pretty pleasantly surprised. Pretty solid and fun combat that seems to like progressively get better as you play the game.
I was just gonna say I wasn't aware that the Dynasty Warriors games didn't have Z targeting. So if I remember right, they have like commanders and stuff that pretty well like hold down certain areas and are kind of like the larger enemies of those games. And as someone, I mean, obviously I played a lot of Zelda and stuff, but it really seems like if you're going for that kind of dual style, like okay, it's me versus you to break that cycle of like 1 versus 1,000 where you're just mowing through a bunch of enemies. Z target really seems pretty important, isn't it?
Yeah. So I haven't played all the Dynasty Warriors games. In fact, the only actual Dynasty Warriors games I played is I just started 6. I know some of the later ones do have a lock-on feature. 6, the one I'm currently playing, does not have a lock-on feature. You just press the guard button to throw the camera behind you. Similar to Ocarina of Time, but without Z targeting. And in many ways, it's not that big of a deal because there's so many enemies everywhere that, you know, in the older Dynasty Warriors games, the importance of commanders is a lot lesser than it is in the Hyrule Warriors games. So the lack of a lock-on camera isn't as big of a deal. But I do know that some of the later Dynasty Warriors games, and for example, Fire Emblem Warriors, that game has a lock-on system. But the lock-on systems often work differently than they do in Zelda. In this case, it's like a joystick click to lock on, whereas in Hyrule Warriors, it's specifically the Z button or your L button, I guess, for modern Zelda games that locks on. And you
just
switch
familiar that way, yeah.
Yeah, and you switch targets the same way by just pressing it again instead of moving the joystick like most of the lock-on games nowadays. But yeah, what I meant by that was more that they specifically tailored their lock-on system to work identical to how the Zelda lock-on system works.
And it works really well. Like,
Yeah.
just like when I'm not targeting an enemy, I'm like, oh, I can't follow them very well because there's so much movement in the game, right? So you're like all over the place, people flying everywhere, and by people I mean, well, people, birds, fish people, and literally everything under the sun.
Everything.
Because you do fight like other races and stuff, which we'll talk about once we get more to like story stuff, I guess. But it's really interesting. One of the things that was really big for me, compared to the original Hyrule Warriors, was the Sheikah Runes and how you use those in the game. Because every single character has their own different way to use them. So what exactly did you guys think about the Sheikah Runes? Was it a really good complement to the gameplay? Because from my perspective, it most certainly was.
So
Super helpful. Go ahead.
first, if it's all right, I kind of wanted to hear what Tyler was going to say before we moved on.
Oh no,
I
I was literally just gonna piggyback off of your thing about the combat being so close to like mimicked off of Breath of the Wilds, that's why it was like super enjoyable for me personally, because like not so much the combat itself, but like the core kind of gameplay in the Warriors games just gets kind of it just gets very repetitive after an extended period of time. So like for me, like I need a good change up in the type of combat and gameplay that I'm doing to like not get super bogged down in it a lot of times. I guess I can, throw the Sheikah Runes into this point as well. Having those available as well definitely helped break up the monotony and really not necessarily like change how you play the game, but they made it a lot more enjoyable for sure.
So on that, again, as someone who hasn't played or maybe hasn't played as much of the game, when you say Sheikah Runes, you mean like the time stop and stuff like that, and the bombs and everything?
Yes,
Correct.
stasis, bombs, cryonis, and what's the other one? Magnesis, yeah. Which is actually like the least important one, if you ask me, in this game. When in Breath of the Wild, it's one of the most important ones, and then cryonis is one of the most important ones. When in Breath of the Wild, it's not, which I kind of appreciate because now I have a better like understanding of how each rune is important.
Does it ever explicitly state, or like in the story, why? I mean, Zelda, it makes sense that she would be able to use it. Link, to some extent, sure. But from what I understand from some of the trailers and stuff, there were a lot of other people using Sheikah Runes as well. Is that ever explained in the
Everybody.
story?
Yes, everybody.
Yeah.
Like everyone has it, right?
And it is because of the Guardian, which we will be going into spoilers here, so we can go ahead and say it is Terrako, which
My
is
sweet
the
boy.
That's
yeah.
right. The name.
character some people might hate now, some people might love to death.
I'll fight him.
I love him.
Who are they? Show yourselves.
I'll die.
I
for
mean, people that
Jericho.
don't like time travel. So yeah.
But the Sheikah Runes I thought were really, really impressive. I really liked how every single character had a completely unique way that their Sheikah Runes were used. Like every single character had a unique Sheikah Rune, which I thought was very, very cool.
Question real quick. Which one is your favorite?
My-
There is a correct answer here, and you better have
Sheikah
it.
Rune or what?
Oh, well, it has to be Sidon's Spaceball Rune.
Yes.
Oh
Okay.
my
You got it.
God.
With no doubt in my heart, the answer is Sidon's baseball bombs.
I don't have to disown. No, this is great. Edible, Tyler. I expected the same thing from you guys.
I wasn't gonna go there immediately because it's kind of.
All right. What's your subpar answer? Go ahead.
Let
us know.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm gonna pull a Nehru card and simp for Impa. I really like all of hers. They're all really cool.
Okay, I'll give you that. The Cryonis writing one is really great as well.
Yes, I like that one a lot actually. She'd just be zooming around.
Edible, do you have any particular one that you really liked?
Of course, at the moment, none come to mind. So, like, when I was playing the game, I was super more into it like 2-3 weeks ago, and then I took a huge break because my game captured out and did the finale. So, like, I am fresh into it, but I kind of just like, because I was on hard mode, I just like want to get through it. I didn't like, test out stuff like I did in the beginning. So I basically kind of like what me and Tyler was talking about before we started going live here. The Witcher, like, I kind of just resort to using stasis a lot, kind of like how
That's
was
a
called The
good
Witcher.
way to go. Yeah.
Huge.
I know the one you're talking. Same
What
thing.
was that friggin' one called? But it's like a shield thing in Witcher, and which is the only one I really used. That is basically what this is in this game. Other than when you're fighting a boss and like it says like it just pops up an icon like, oh, use the ice one or use magnesis. I like that a lot. Like, it was super simple and easy, but it's still relatively fine when you do connect with those.
It adds
will
to the
say-
gameplay, more depth and everything.
Yeah.
Like chaining a meteor rod with cryosis is like one of the most satisfying feelings in that game. It's so
I haven't
fun.
even tried that.
Like,
The
you
way
freeze them and then just use a meteor rod, and it's like it does extra damage and breaks their shields more.
yeah.
It's so fun.
See, that's the thing. Like, this game can be so satisfying at points when you just get into a rhythm and you do your Cryonis stop, then you go straight into like a stun lock, and then you go right into stasis from there, do another stun lock, use a special, why not, and it just, once you get that combat down, it's so much fun to just tear through enemies.
That's the wonderful thing about the Warriors game is that they have a very low skill level. Like, it's anybody can play a Warriors game and do pretty well at it because they're not very hard, but the skill ceiling is very, very high. Like,
Kinda like Smash in a way, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
you can do some insane stuff in that game, like the way that you can chain Sheikah Runes into your combos and then lead into a second combo and things like that.
Mhm.
It's all
Or like the
insane.
switching of the King of Hyrule into like, I guess
Yeah.
spoiler alert, into
Yeah,
the old man.
King of
It's pretty
Hyrule
sick and like
guys features.
I heard you can do way more, but I just know like the simple move, at least the one that comes to mind is like I
Yeah.
forget what move you're doing with the King Hyrule, but then you can switch into the old man. He does like a tornado thing. I don't
Yeah.
know, it's super sick. I'm sure you can do more off of it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's and it's definitely the case because of all the Warriors games I've played, Age of Calamity absolutely has the most robust and intricate like combat system. It has the most extensive and unique combos. It has the most unique special abilities, and I don't think any of the other games really have like an entire other type of attack system like the Sheikah Runes.
Yeah, it really is just unique in that way. I know that like there was some discussion like about another Warriors game that actually came out in Japan like last year as well, but it's not coming out in the US until like February this year, which is Persona 5 Scrambled. I don't know too much about the game because I haven't played it yet, but I have heard that like the Warriors team also went hard into like just capturing that game's style and everything. And I don't know about the gameplay so much, but the style is most certainly there. So I feel like their team is most certainly a master at taking different IPs and franchises and stuff and just meshing them into Warriors. And it's great to play.
And I think a lot of that comes from how close they were working with the Zelda team and how big of fans they were. I remember I was reading an interview by the team that made the game, and they were talking about how whenever they needed to boot Breath of the Wild up to reference something, they could really do anybody's Switch because absolutely everybody had pretty much like come close to 100%ing the game. So they could just boot anybody's game up and access what they needed.
Now, speaking of that, this is something that's really interesting because you probably didn't notice it a lot when playing the game because there's so much frantic gameplay going on and everything, and you don't have time to stop and just smell the roses. But as you go around Hyrule and look at all these different locations and different maps in the game, there's like a really good sense of this being the exact same world as Breath of the Wild. And just like the locations around you, you match those up and you will see that it's the same as Breath of the Wild. There might be like discrepancies in like the scale of everything, and like some maps there's it's hard to like just pinpoint everything. Like I'm thinking of Gatepost Town, that one is hard to just pinpoint exactly what's going on because you can see so much. But you look at a lot of the other maps and they're like 1-to-1 with Breath of the Wild.
Gerudo Town blew me away.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Zora's Domain, that
Yeah.
was a big one for me.
The way you could like go into the rooms in Gerudo Town, and I like recognize things hanging on the wall, and like you could go up to the bar and stuff like that. It was very cool.
I think part of why that's such a good location that shows this aspect off is because Gerudo Town really hasn't seemed to change that much in the past like 100 years.
Yeah.
Like it's the exact same, which is it's great for like just having that comparison. But yeah, a one that I was really keen to see was Akala Citadel and just walking inside of there, which that was really cool.
It really was. I'm talking about this a little in my next video, but I really do think that if in Breath of the Wild 2, they decide to make Akala Citadel enterable, or even like Fort Hitano if it's rebuilt or something, I really do think that they would be able to use Age of Calamity as a blueprint for restoring Akala Citadel back into the game.
For sure.
I think that's exactly what they're doing. It will not surprise me at all. If like part of me, and this might be a little bit tinfoil hatty, but like I really feel like a lot of the stuff that we see in Age of Calamity is stuff that is going to show up in Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
Because they're making those assets for some reason, you know, obviously for Age of Calamity, but like if we know one thing about the Breath of the Wild engine and what they're doing with it is that they love to reuse things from that game. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see stuff like Akala Citadel and some of those locations pop up in in Breath of the Wild 2.
all the
in
different
Breath of the
things
Wild
in
2.
Age of Calamity that they could bring over to Breath of the Wild 2 if they wanted to. And there's like a lot. Like I would really love to see the elemental enemies make their way over, like the fire
Oh, yeah.
moblins and the lightning moblins.
Yeah.
Especially with like Breath of the Wild's chemistry set design. Like, could you imagine if you were sneaking up
Oh
on
my gosh.
on a moblin base with a lightning moblin, and you sneak up there while they're all sleeping, and then you just start dropping metal weapons all around them?
Oh no.
Or like you stalk a fire Lionel until it starts raining, and then the rain weakens it a little bit.
No, it just literally dies. It can't survive in the rain.
Charmandered it. Oof.
There you go, Edible. Your Lionel challenge is going to be
Oh,
much
God.
easier now.
Wow, that changed everything.
Everybody's going to be thankful for the rain instead of cursing it now.
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty
finally.
much. But even other things like, I know the whole weapon degradation thing is quite a hot topic. I can't stand it personally, and I think that a really good middle ground would be to bring over the blacksmith system, so you can.
I think
repair
that
your weapon.
infusion,
I can agree with
Yeah.
you on that, yeah.
weapon infusion was a big thing for me in this
Yeah.
Yeah.
in this game. I would love to see that in Breath of the Wild too.
Yeah,
Now,
and
I'm one of those people that stands by the weapon durability system, and I think it should stay. But I definitely do think that middle ground that you're talking about, having like blacksmiths and stuff to like even just like upgrade your weapons so it's harder to break them, or just like
Yep.
bring them back from being broken. I guess I don't know. That could be really great. Yeah.
I'm totally in the same boat.
I guess this sort of gets off topic from Age of Calamity to Breath of the Wild too, but I just wanted to mention it. I think a really good idea that they could go with is if the blacksmith was able to sell you some sort of ointment, and it was very expensive ointment, and normally if your weapon breaks, it just disappears from your inventory like normal, but if you apply this expensive ointment to your weapon, then you keep it when it breaks and you can bring it back to a blacksmith.
Or like repair kits.
Yeah,
That's something The Witcher does. Often you'll use up your gear, but then you can repair it with a repair kit. So I mean, I think with that specifically, and again, this is off topic and everything, but there should be, from like a game, like a development standpoint, I think it would be better to add more options instead of taking them away or replacing it, so to
Yeah.
say.
Mhm.
That's definitely, yeah.
at least like a couple things here and there, like maybe not super substantial to totally destroy the base system itself. Because I also agree with Xeno. I don't think it was too bad. Like I love the prospect of having to constantly change weapons.
Yeah.
You know, the cycle of weapons is
I like
huge.
the weapon degradation in the early
Mhm.
game, but at the end game, when you're fighting Lionels with more
Sure.
health than most bosses, it's like,
Sure.
oh, now I'm gonna lose 3/4 of my inventory of weapons because these things fold like paper.
Totally understand that. Yeah, but maybe like a middle ground. They can start testing in things here and there, like you guys just said, would be great. I agree.
I do think that finding that, again, we're getting away from Age of Calamity, but it kind of adds in. All of this is actually stuff that we kind of covered in one of our Breath of the Wild 2 wishlist videos over on the channel. And I've had some time to think about the degradation system, and if you don't find like the perfect middle ground to where it is, so for example, say like repair kits, on paper that sounds like a really like okay, that's like the solution to the problem. It's like perfect, they break out in the field, you can just use them. But at a certain point, you have to be like, okay, if I can just repair my item here, then why have it break in the first place?
Right.
Especially if like repair kits are pretty easy to come by, which you would want them to, so you can still use your cool items.
Well, that's why
So
I
yeah,
think that,
it's just kind of like the ointment thing. I think is a pretty good call, so you could preserve an item.
yeah, and I do think they should be a substantial rupee sink, because that'll, number one, give you something to spend your damn rupees on, and number
Finally.
two, it'll make it so you're not just buying 50 repair kits and fixing every single item when it breaks, right?
Mhm.
So
Maybe if they made certain items function kind of like the Master Sword. I believe this is someone else's your idea, but where they function similar to the Master Sword, where like maybe electric weapons, if they choose to bring elemental weapons back, which I hope they do, they don't necessarily break themselves. They just don't have any charge, and they hit like a stick or something at that point. So you wouldn't want to use them, but you just wait for them to recover. At that point, you'd also be able to make these weapons a lot rarer and a lot more like, wow, I found this really cool like two-handed electric blade. This is super awesome. Instead of, okay, well, I guess I won't use this for the entire game
Yeah,
until I find a second one.
pretty much. That's the thing, right? Like when I just don't use the cool weapons I find. I just put
Exactly.
my controller down
Right.
and wait till my master sword
Like
recharges.
all the amiibo weapons you get, like Ganondorf's sword from Twilight Princess, like never really touch it. When I do, I don't save,
Yeah,
don't want it to be gone.
Now, before we move on to the next thing, I want to ask one more thing about just like exploring areas in Hyrule and seeing them 100 years ago, which is, were you bummed out when you found out that Hyrule Castle Town could only be explored in a destroyed environment? Again,
Yes.
not fully destroyed, but still destroyed.
100% yes. That was super.
the first level isn't that destroyed.
You kind of get a feel.
Yeah, but that's
Town.
more Hyrule Field.
Oh, you can go into Castle Town in the first level.
You could.
Yeah,
You sure?
pretty
Wait.
sure.
Wait, really?
Are what? Are you lying to me?
Maybe it's the second level, but one of the earlier levels you can go into Castle Town.
I'm gonna go fact check this right now. You guys continue the discussion. We're fine. We're fine.
Well, let's pretend that Nehru's wrong, and just go off that consensus. I was kind of bummed by it because like Castletown is like such. I feel like that's a staple for Zelda, is like having a central hub, be it Ocarina of Time or like Twilight Princess, or even like with Majora's Mask and Termina, or Clocktown rather. Like having just this like centralized location and hub where there's like just a mass of people and like merchants and shops and all this other stuff. I don't like that's always been like a huge thing for me. I really love that because it's like it's an extra level of like world building, and I just enjoy seeing like, especially like in Twilight Princess, like how there would be like the Gorons and stuff just have like a little shop set up there and everything. So it was, I don't know, I was bummed that we didn't get like a full-fledged experience with Castletown.
What I will say, what I did like a lot though, I forget what the name of the map was, but it was like right below the plateau, and it was the level where you fight Skoga? I don't know how to say his name. But it was
Suga?
like a Skuga, how do you say it?
I have the
Suga.
same problem.
Suga. Okay, I cannot do anything. Cannot pronounce anything. But yeah, that specific level was pretty great. I love like the feel of the town. It kind of reminded me of like an Attack on Titan, like the building wise. It's the way
Like
the structure was.
It has that
It was
aesthetic about
gorgeous.
it. It does
Yeah.
have that aesthetic.
I will throw that in there. That was nice.
I definitely feel like that's the closest we get to having that
Yeah.
experience of seeing a fully functional town in Hyrule. Because, like, in the first level, you see, like, the little settlements and everything outside, which I think is what you were referring to, Nehru, but, like, you don't get, like, beyond the wall and see, like, what's at the base of Hyrule
Mhm.
Castle.
Okay, I see what you
You
mean.
dirty
So, yeah, I think... I think that about does it for just, like, exploring the different areas of Hyrule and what we all thought of that. Because it's great, like, right? Like, seeing everything 100 years ago, that was, like, a big promise of this game. And I feel like, for the most part, it delivered. There might have been some locations left out, but, like, I feel like we got a lot of the big ones.
You know what I really loved seeing? I really loved seeing the walls of the Great Plateau looking
Intact.
pristine and
Yeah.
intact.
Mm.
That really made me like, parts of it are a little banged up, but it's like night and day nicer looking than
Yes.
Seeing
how
the Temple of
ruined they are.
Time.
Yeah,
Seeing the Temple of
Yeah,
Time.
Temple
oh my
Time.
God. Yes.
Was
Like
Yeah.
I remember
tight.
getting to that point in the game, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I get to go to the Temple of Time and it not be a complete ruin." That like that's
That's right.
how
I
did
need,
I
like-
not like think of that
I
beforehand?
need to replay that level because I remember noticing like little things here and there were like different, on the ground, like the structure, like I think it was like a Triforce symbol, something that this wasn't here in Breath of the Wild. I need to replay that level and do some more scoping out. But yeah, it's totally true.
yeah.
And I remember just, like, when I was, like, the first video I made that I was like, things you need to explain in Age of Calamity. I was like, Great Plateau, show us more of that. Was it actually destroyed 100 years ago in the Great
Mhm.
Calamity, or was it even before that? Now we know it was destroyed in the Great Calamity, because it's looking pretty pristine in Age of Calamity. which was awesome to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thankfully, I guess this gets into story stuff, but there's been a lot of commotion about whether, at least in my comment section, about whether or not Breath of the Wild. A lot of people are so worried that Breath of the Wild 2 is secretly going to be a sequel to Age of Calamity.
No
And that's
way.
that's not
Not
that's
a
not
chance.
no
No.
that's not going to happen. And one of the things I was able to say to calm people's nerves about that, and it seems to have genuinely worked, is I was like, look at the trailer for Breath of the Wild 2. Wait for the part where the castle rises in the sky. Look at the Great Plateau walls. They're all banged up. So
You are actually
Bam.
100% right, because you don't see any of the like grand structures that are still there in Age of Calamity on that. I mean, it could just be something they're like, oh, we're gonna hide this, but I don't think that's what we're seeing. Like before, most of us already thought, like you just said, that it's not gonna be a sequel to Age of Calamity's Hyrule.
Mhm.
But yeah, that is a really good point, Nehru.
And also, all their marbles are, in the basket for this game. They're not gonna just like, bank it off of a game that people are still debating if it's canon or not. They're gonna go all in for that story, I think, and especially
Yeah.
since people hated, or not hated, some people did not like the lack of story in Breath of the Wild. So I think they're gonna make it way more interesting in Breath of the Wild 2 for sure.
Also, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to announce the sequel for a game that hasn't even been announced yet.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That too. Okay, so let's get into some more gameplay stuff. A few more gameplay things. So there's some enemies that you fight in this game, right? There's enemies. There's some enemies, not as many
A
as I
few.
would have liked. We still have that same problem of enemy variety in this game that we saw in Breath of the Wild. There's not a lot of it. There is a little more with the elemental varieties and all that, but you're fighting the bokoblins, you're fighting the moblins, sometimes you throw in a Hinox there, maybe a Lionel or two. And did that get a little old for any of you guys?
For me, it was fine. I guess because I didn't really expect any more than what Breath of the Wild already had. And for Breath of the Wild 2, I totally want to, that not to be the case, the complete opposite. But for me, that was
For sure.
not really a hindrance at all. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty much kind of the same there. I will say that it was I wouldn't necessarily like categorize these as new enemies, like maybe as bosses, but like the hollows were super fun. Like I really liked the inclusion of those. Like that was just because that's like you basically just get to fight the champions, so that was cool. But I think I agree with Edible. It's like knowing this is Breath of the Wild's world and knowing what enemies we're going to be facing and what's available in this iteration of Hyrule kind of didn't take that away from me just because I already knew what to expect.
I would say that it's not. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you can go.
I was just gonna say, at least from what I played, again, just the demo, but even assuming that there were as many enemies in Age of Calamity as there were in Breath of the Wild, the ways that you can interact with them have changed a bit, even just with these different combos and like aerial combos and stuff like that. Especially focusing in on like the bosses and the stronger enemies, the ways that you can interact with them is much more than, I mean, not the Lionels. The Lionel is a very active fight, even in Breath of the Wild, and the Blights are very active fights. But most fights in Breath of the Wild kind of boil down to either dodge at the last second or parry, and flurry strike or parry, basically. So I think
Those are your options.
yeah, basically. And the inclusion of the Sheikah Runes, as we had talked about earlier, really expand on that. So while would be nice to have more enemies, more things to look at, it would also kind of be expected for some of them to be worked into the next game that came in, which in this case would be a game that's already created. So that's kind of difficult to do.
I definitely understand where you guys are all coming from with that. I feel like the main reason I bring this up and everything is because it is a Warriors game, and you're seeing a lot more of these enemies. I'm just thinking back to like Hyrule Warriors, where we would have Lizalfos over here. There would be like a Argarok over here as a different boss, and then you have like over here like a Goma or something. Like there was a lot more variety you would see just like even in basic enemies, even though I didn't do a very good job of naming them off there. Like you'd have Twilight Princess Bokoblins, you'd have like Bokoblins from Skyward Sword or something. Like you'd have that variety. And it was just like, it got a little old seeing the same Bokoblins and Moblins and everything. I feel like that's where I'm trying to come from on this.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So two things. So first of all, I just want to reply to something Keelik said because it harkened back to something earlier where we were talking about how they did a really good job of making Age of Calamity feel like Breath of the Wild. Did you guys not feel like fighting a Lionel in Age of Calamity felt identical to fighting a Lionel in Breath of the Wild?
It does to
It
an
did.
extent.
It did to me. Yeah.
Yeah, like obviously you have your further combos, but like the way you fight them is like almost identical to
Which
Breath
isn't a
of
bad
the Wild.
thing, in my opinion.
No, it's
I used
crazy.
the same strategy that I did in Breath of the Wild to fight them.
The same muscle reflexes for
Yep.
dodging at the last minute.
Mhm.
But anyways, the other thing is, I think I actually think that the enemy variety was probably about on par with the original Hyrule Warriors. It's just that we're so used to the Breath of the Wild enemies that they feel old.
Mhm.
Because, for example, in the original Hyrule Warriors, there are like 3 different game series that they're pulling enemies from, not including DLC. Because I don't think it's fair to include the DLC when we're comparing base games. But in the base game, there's like 3 different types of enemies from 3 different game series. And in Breath of the Wild, there's the Bokoblins and there's the Bokoblins and the Lizalfos. And then you have the Stalfos version of both, and then you fight the Gorons, and then you fight the Gerudo and the Zora. There's levels where you're fighting Hyrule Knights, and then there's all the boss monsters, and then there's elemental versions of the different boss monsters. So I think that the enemy variety was actually quite good. It's just that we are very tired of fighting the same enemies because Breath of the Wild is the most.
I can definitely see that, yeah. Just like adding more onto that fatigue that was already there. So
Yeah,
does
exactly.
anyone have like a favorite boss enemy or something in the game, I guess? Like there's, like what did you enjoy fighting the most? And you can't just pick Lionels.
Oh damn! I was gonna say Malice Lionel. Probably
okay.
Oh, those were so cool though.
probably the Thunderblight.
Okay, what? Real quick,
Ooh.
what did you think when all of a sudden you saw a Malice Lionel? Were you just like, why?
Terrifying.
It already has Malice. Why does it have to be a Malice Lionel?
I mean, why
Just
not?
as someone who hasn't played, I'm like, that. You could tell me that existed, and I'd be like, no, it doesn't.
I was.
They don't
I
need
was.
it.
I was sufficiently shooketh.
I was so excited because I'm like, oh my god, if we get another element in the form of Malice in the next game, that's going to be so big.
Yeah, the Malice.
Yeah,
enemies
I mean,
were excellent.
Yeah.
They
I
just
will
looked
say one
so
thing though.
cool.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They look so cool.
Yeah.
It may be like a little cheesy, like, oh, okay, they're already infected by Malice. Why do they need more? But like, they look cool, so that's fine. I'm okay with it.
And this is a bit of a tangent, but I think that's one of the things that Age of Calamity did so well is Breath of the Wild is already a very vibrant and colorful game, and Age of Calamity somehow manages to be even more vibrant and more colorful because of all the elemental enemies.
Yes.
Mhm.
And
blights.
the way that a lot of the stages are dark, but the elemental enemies are really bright with their unique colors. Yeah, I thought that the game looked really nice with how
Mhm.
colorful it looked.
Definitely agree there.
So for
Um,
me, favorite enemy-wise, pretty tough. In general, I will say before I name someone, it's just the combat of the way of like I forget if Hyrule Warriors the original is like this, but like the diamond meter of like you can stasis and then, or whenever they're stunned, bringing down that meter and then hitting X for that weak point smash is super satisfying. I love
Yeah.
it. But if I had to choose one, which we can get into this person's development later, so you guys think about that. But just fighting him, just combat wise, at least the first time when you get the Master Sword, Aster.
Ah,
It's a
yes.
pretty fun fight. I like that.
Yeah, Esther was a fun fight.
For me, Calamity Ganon. That boss fight,
Yeah.
so good.
Whatever
I
you
love
guys
that.
think about that. I kind of had an experience last night. We can get into that.
I thought the boss
It
fight
is
was,
a good boss fight.
I thought it was super short. Like I feel like it lasted about a minute and a half.
It was short, but it was. I enjoyed it. It was so
Okay,
much
so-
fun.
You struggle. It was cool though.
I went in under leveled on like just normal mode because I played on normal. I'm not as cool as you, Edible. I'm sorry, but
I don't feel bad. I played on
I
normal.
struggled. I struggled on Ganon a little bit, but yeah.
No, yeah,
That,
like, I guess it's just me in video games in general. I don't like going maximum hard mode. Like if I'm decent at, not saying amazing at the game, decent at the game, and the game isn't too crazy combat, I don't know. I don't feel more. I'm more the person that I want at least some kind of like at least slight challenge. I don't want to just go through. And I mean, I love story in general, but I'm more when I kill a boss or kill an enemy. I more so want to feel that like, oh
Yeah.
yes, I finally did it. I did that. I didn't
Which-
just, you know.
It helps if you're bad at
Defies, like,
video games.
Me too. Which you definitely don't get at the beginning of the game. Like it starts off very easy,
Yeah.
and then like
Mhm.
I feel like once you hit the blights, that's when the the
Mhm.
difficulty just like starts going way up. Because the blights were another area I was just like, oh my gosh, why?
Fire
Actually
Blight.
fighting them, like how many times did we fight them? Like 2-3 times?
I really enjoyed all the fights against the Thunderblight. I don't know. It was super intense and fast and
Thunder's
frantic.
great. The last one was
Okay,
pretty
okay.
rough. But continue.
Is it just me, or is Thunderblight actually the weakest one in this game?
I didn't.
I
think so.
struggled the most.
No.
With, I struggled the most with Fire Blight Ganon in this game, honestly.
That was me too.
That headbutt. that headbutt.
Actually,
But
like,
I think for me, like, I think Thunderblight was the only one I finished on the first try,
oh,
which
wow.
I was just like, wow,
Oh, nice.
why is he easy in this game?
It was kind of chaotic, at least
For-
for me.
For
I
me,
think
it
I
was the
actually
opposite. I died a whole
cheesed
bunch
that.
to Thunderblight, and then I beat everybody else on the first try.
Just different experiences.
From
I
kind of
will
an
say-
outsider's perspective, and I kind of wanted to bring this up earlier when we were talking about the Lionel fight in Breath of the Wild 2 and how it was like a very active, very kind of like high octane fight. A lot of the other fights aren't necessarily that way, but it almost feels like the original Lionel was kind of like not necessarily an Age of Calamity fight, but it felt like it was kind of a fight from a different game, if that makes sense.
Totally.
It was much faster, much. I mean, even just staying at a distance, there wasn't really like a safe place to be. Parrying is incredibly risky and very
For
difficult.
sure.
Dodging, most of the time, you're going to be dodging his charges, which don't really yield much, whereas in every other instance, they yield a flurry attack, which is really good. So it almost seems like Thunderblight, which ironically was the one that I fought first in Breath of the Wild, unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was not great.
I mean,
But-
at least they do the level scaling. So, like,
Do they? Okay, that's
by
that's
which
good.
one you fight, they're easier.
Great.
That's
I
good.
didn't know that. Interesting.
So, again, we have this kind of like high octane fight against, in this case, a smaller enemy that's very zippy, very fast. It almost feels like it's kind of like a fight from a different game. And he takes, the speed of the game and just cranks it up to 11. So the fact that you said that he was easier in Age of Calamity doesn't really surprise me, especially if he's relatively similar to how he is, in like speed as opposed to Breath of the Wild, because you as a character are just more mobile, you have more tools to deal with him as well. So maybe that's a weird thing to say, but
Yeah.
I was thinking about that earlier when we were talking about enemies as well.
Oh no, that totally makes sense to me. Yeah.
Because the original Thunderblight Ganon felt like a fight from a different game, if that makes sense. And I think
Yeah, I
Lionel's kind of
really-
do that too.
I think that's like a really good way to put it, and just like that makes sense why I would think it's easier in Age of Calamity. I also like you were talking about like how he splits their Nehru, and I was like, I feel like I kind of cheesed that somehow. Is there a way to do that? Because I feel like I only fought him like one of him, and then like the other one just like disappeared.
What?
I don't know.
That's
I'll
why
have
it
to
was
go
so
back and
easy.
Notice.
recheck the footage. It's documented on my channel, so yeah.
It's weird. I don't know how it triggers this. So like, obviously you can change characters when you're going through. But like when I was fighting Thunderblight last night in Hyrule Castle, so like I almost died as a certain character. So like I'm gonna change the other character, change to somebody else, and which was somewhere else, and then change back to that character. And when I changed back, like I noticed whenever I changed back, at least when he was at half health, so I don't think he does the multiplication thing until like half health. So whenever I change back, he like starts over the animation of multiplying again. I guess just the game is programmed. So like, as opposed to everybody being all spread out, just, okay, you're back in this room, let me multiply again. I noticed that, so I don't know if that's a factor in your thing or not, but...
Did you happen to change, Zeno, when you were playing, did you have to change characters at all during that fight? Maybe it has to do with
Actually,
how many people are present?
I couldn't actually, because when you go into the Divine Beast to do that fight, you can only bring one character.
Okay, yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, we'll figure that out later. So right now, I feel like there's one more thing we need to go into before we finish off the gameplay section and go into some of the story stuff we have to talk about, because there's some good stuff over there as well. And that's favorite character. What's your favorite character to play as? Let's start with Edible. Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
So I got that question yesterday on stream too. I mean, Link is great, and he's a great go-to, especially if you're struggling, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But most enjoyable character, I think, especially because of how he was presented in the story, which we can get to later, is I think the King of Hyrule is so fun. And I wasn't expecting him to be playable, and I was wanting him to be playable forever, and I thought he wasn't gonna be, as you guys obviously know the plot twist, but probably him. And Zelda's great. When Zelda goes Super Saiyan, I'll say.
Yeah.
When she gets her power, she's badass. But I think I'd say King of Hyrule.
Super Saiyan Zelda is my favorite, for sure.
From the
It was
outside, this sounds very strange.
She
but
literally
it was-
launches a Kamehameha out of her hands.
She
Okay,
does.
well,
Oh my god, it's the most glorious thing too. It was so weird because I barely touched Zelda before that, but like as
Right,
soon as she
same.
awakens her power, it's just like I'm like, okay, well, I'm a Zelda main now, so just gonna be doing this the rest of the game.
That definitely is just like a great moment, though, which we'll get into with story here in a little bit. But Nehru, what's yours?
So something that's funny is that all the characters that I hate, like as characters, are some of the most fun to play. Like I absolutely hate Rivali. He's the worst character in Zelda's history,
And that is not true. That's a
And
not
he-
true statement.
and he's a lot of fun to play in the game.
That is true.
I think that King Roan is a bad father and a worse king. Just an
Facts.
absolute garbage fire of a character.
I can agree with that one.
And he's a really fun character to play too.
Yeah.
Teba, who's just
Teba.
utterly,
Oh my gosh.
utterly bland, an utterly bland nothing character, is super duper fun to play.
I had the exact same reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, even Yunobo, who's like just terrible, is
Yeah.
pretty fun. But my favorite characters, my third favorite character is, to continue the trend, Ceiling Power Zelda. My second favorite character is Impa, because
Hell yeah.
she's just beautiful in every way.
Is this?
And
Are you speaking from a gameplay perspective on that, neighbor?
Wait, that's number 2. What? Who are you?
Why not both? My absolute favorite character to play is Urbosa. She's my main. She's my highest level.
She's a
And
baddie.
Terraco, Terraco might be my number 3 instead of Ceiling Power Zelda. I really like Terraco.
That's interesting. I hate playing as Terrico.
Oh, I love him.
Me too. Worst part of the game.
Whoa, hold up. Because I didn't play it anymore after the ending.
Oh,
It's a post-game character, actually.
Oh, yeah.
my
I didn't
bad.
realize. Hell yeah, I'm excited. Continue.
I really love characters that can attack without stopping their momentum. And you can do that with Terraco's Beyblade attacks. So
You can also do that with Teba.
yeah, you sure can. I think the best 2 characters in the game. I don't know. I'm sure some lore experts probably, or some Warriors experts gonna annihilate me on this opinion, but I think that the best 2 characters are probably Sidon and Teba.
Oh man, I hated playing
They-
a Sidon.
Sidon
Okay. Get out. Get out.
I really
Sidon-
did.
is insanely powerful. Like
Sidon is great.
he can cause, I think, the actual most damage in the game if you
Wow.
Oh,
land
wow.
all his dance mini game abilities where you're trying to hit it on time. Yeah, he can do insane damage. You can kill a guardian in like 5 seconds with him. It's nuts. And then Teba is just like, what if I want 65 bomb arrows to go off at once to the point where my game feels like it's about to crash? Then you play as Teba.
He's your guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm very disappointed. Oh, wait, actually, we need to Killick. What was your favorite from the 3 you played in the demo?
Ooh. Well, honestly, okay. So Neighbor's gonna be upset with me about this. I would say my top 3, rather, Age of Calamity, rather. Characters I would put in order of Zelda last. I couldn't get into it. I don't know. It was weird. It just felt weird to me.
It's all about like setting up traps and stuff.
Yeah. Sure.
Her ultimate was taking a picture.
She's a very
That's
technical character. A lot of people think she's bad. She's not bad. She's just very technical.
It's very different from Link, especially, which I would probably put as my number 1, honestly. It just, the ease of just being able to hop in and just play it like, hack and slash. And also his moveset is kind of goofy, honestly. Like the shield sliding, I love that one. That was the best.
It's fun.
But Impa definitely had, I would say, the coolest moveset. It almost seemed a little excessive at some points, but it was definitely
so good about
pretty
it.
neat.
You thought it was excessive at that point.
Her moveset.
Yeah, well,
her
Later
moveset-
on, you pulled out like 6 frogs. So
Yeah. Her
Fair
moveset was as excessively
Beautiful.
powerful as she was excessively cute.
Facts.
I know at least once during the stream when I did the demo, I was like, all right, calm down. And it gets better, apparently.
I will not
Yes.
calm down.
okay, I'm still very disappointed in all of you because you all did the wrong choice. You made the wrong decision because the best character in this game, the only character that should be number 1 on every single list you'll ever see for this game, is Master Koga. It has to be
Oh,
Master
you know
Koga.
what?
It has to be Master Koga.
I hate his moveset. I hate it so much.
Okay, Nehru, the door's right there.
Kick him from the server.
So, we'll get into this in the story section. I don't want to talk too much about the character and the performance and how that all went. But just from a moveset perspective, I'm kind of biased on this because I loved that portion of him so much that I was like, okay, I'm going to try to make this character my main as much as I can. So I went out of my way and did all of his missions as soon as I could, fully filled out everything that he had to offer, and he's a beast. He is so when you have his full moveset, I love just rolling around on his giant metal ball and falling off and then hitting people with a brain blast for some reason. It's amazing. I love that. You can pull out some Sheikah Blade Masters and they'll run you around.
I love
And
that.
You can pull out a banana for them too at some point, and
wow.
it's great. That's why he's my
Bouncing-
favorite.
Bouncing off of that, just to say, for people that are like in Keelik's point of view, who haven't really played it much or whatever.
Sounds
thing that,
wild.
What was that?
I said, this sounds wild.
Yeah, exactly. So I've beat the game, obviously, but because of this discussion right now, like, there's so many characters that I'm realizing that I didn't really touch much at all that probably get a lot better the more you play them and rank them up with their own personal side quests and stuff. So it's like, damn. So if you're into certain characters or whatever, you can totally buff them up. And
Oh yeah, that's
probably a
definitely the
blast with
case for
them.
like every character in this game. I feel like
Yeah.
there's not a bad character in
There's
this game.
so many to check out too. I've barely checked out many of them at all.
What Zeno is saying right now is so true. In original Hyrule Warriors, there were dozens of characters that I think are just bad. There's not a single character in Age of Calamity that I think is bad. They're all pretty fun to play. There are characters that I think start off bad, like Riju, but she gets really good as you unlock her further combos.
Hmm.
You didn't like rolling around on a sandsill?
Oh, her movement was super fun. Her attacks were just kind of wonky.
Yeah, I get
Found
that.
I found it hard to kill more than 1 or 2 guys at a time.
Okay, so I think that's all of our favorite characters out of the
Can I
way.
ask a question?
There's only one more thing. Yes,
What is everybody's favorite waifu?
Koga.
Good answer.
Kind of tough. Probably
God
between. You're gonna hate me. Probably between Paya. I mean, not Paya. Oh my god, it's drawn a blank.
Impa?
No, not Impa. Well, Zelda, of course, and with Robbie. What's her name?
Cora?
my
Oh,
God.
Purah. Purah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess I was.
Oh, yeah.
The one that I've been pronouncing wrong for years.
Yeah, me too, apparently.
Which I wish she was playable, but anyway, her and Zelda probably.
What
just
I
about,
don't
broke my
know
heart,
who
by the way.
I have to pick, but
what about you, Tyler?
Man, I really like Impa, but I think I'm gonna go Zelda.
Disgusting.
It's got to be Paya, but
I'm basic.
only for a little while.
Obviously for me.
Breath of
it's
the Wild time comes around, I'm out.
Obviously for me, it's Impa. But, you know, Urbosa makes me feel some kind of way too. So.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
You're-
All right. One more thing before we move on to story. Finally, we've had a lot to say about gameplay. So, world map. This is a new thing to this game compared to Hyrule Warriors. I don't know if it's something that you've seen before in the other Dynasty Warriors games, but in this game, you have the map of Hyrule from Breath of the Wild. There's been a few changes because it has been 100 years, but basically that's your map selection menu, and you go from there and you go to all the different places, and there's a ton of like different little side thingy-bobbers that pop up everywhere. You have quests to unlock stuff for characters, you have main missions, you have training missions, you have all kinds of stuff on that map. What'd you think? Was this a good decision? Are you bummed out there's not another adventure mode type thing from Hyrule Warriors, or is it just it's great, you like it?
I have a lot
I feel
to
like-
say. I have a lot
Yeah,
to say.
I was gonna say Nehru's probably the best one to answer this question.
I'll actually go last because I do have a strong opinion on it, so I'll go last.
For me, I liked it, but granted, I didn't play enough of the original Hyrule Warriors to know enough about the adventure thing. But I will say a thing that I love about open world games is like when they just put a ton of icons on the map for me to go find, and then I get to see myself actively complete them. Like
It's
Ghost of
satisfying.
Yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima does a similar thing with that, like just from recent memory. I love that. I love just like seeing, hey, there's an objective I need to go do, and then once I've done it, it's cleared off the map, or
The
it's
game's
just
fantastic,
checked
by
off.
the way. But continue.
Yes, God tier.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked having all those things there that I could just do on the map screen, like the stuff with like the materials and like food and stuff like that, and just like the upgrading merchants shops and all those things. I don't know. That ticked like just the satisfaction meter for me. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, kind of pretty much exactly the same. I haven't played the original Hyrule Warriors in a few years, and when I did, I think I just focused on story. I don't think I did the adventure mode stuff at all, so I'm not sure either. But for this seemed very satisfying and on point for what it needs to be. But I'm curious what Nehru's opinion is.
So I did dabble some in the adventure mode for Hyrule Warriors, and I thought that a really cool idea of how that worked is you unlock characters through that. And it was a way that made me think like, okay, I actually want to play this mode now because I want to get the characters. So that was a reason that had me coming back to those missions. I feel like Age of Calamity kind of lacks that because there's some missions that you go through, like Monk and Great Fairy, get those through doing side missions, but I don't know. It wasn't there as much for me, and I definitely see
Holy
that
shit.
this worked.
Continue.
This, I know what you're gonna say, Edible. Did you not
Yeah,
know
I'm
those
sure.
are playable characters?
Yeah. Continue.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
But the thing is that, oh my gosh, I'm thinking of how I found Great Fairy now, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that was a moment in this game. But the thing is that I feel like it still functioned really well. Like for the story it was trying to tell, this map and everything worked for that. I don't know. I feel like the map worked, but it wasn't what I wanted. We'll say that.
Am I up?
You are up.
Okay. So, I put about 400 hours into Hyrule Warriors, the first one, across the different versions, the Wii U version and the Switch version. Of that, I think probably a total of 80 to 100 hours were in the story mode, clearing every level on every difficulty.
Wow.
The other 300 were all in adventure mode. I really I think that adventure mode is one of, if not the best side mode in any video game ever. Like, they are so good.
It is really good.
Yeah, the thing that makes the adventure modes so special is that each one has mechanics in the adventure mode itself that makes it somewhat similar to the game that it's trying to emulate. Like in the NES Zelda adventure map, you have the different tiles with secrets in them that you have to deal with the same way you do in the NES Zelda. Like there are bushes that hide secrets and you have to burn them with the candle item, and there are hidden walls you have to blow up. And then in like, let's take a random one and say the Majora's Mask adventure mode, there's like a 3-day looping mechanic where you can only go as far out in a period of 3 days, and then you get teleported back. In the A Link Between Worlds one, there's like a Hyrule low rule mechanic where half of the map is low rule, half of the map is high rule, and you'll teleport to the different side of the map depending on where you're going. And a lot of those things really made each adventure map feel really, really unique and a lot of fun to spend time in. Now, I really respect what they tried to do with Age of Calamity. I feel like they put a lot of effort in trying to carry over some of the uniqueness in the quests to the side quests in Age of Calamity. There was no some of the adventure mode missions in original Hyrule Warriors got pretty annoying, like the quiz ones, and all those ones didn't make an appearance. But there were a lot of really fun, unique side missions in Age of Calamity, but it just didn't do it for me. Number one, I thought the map was so cluttered that it was often really hard to find things. Even when you're zoomed in all the way, I often had difficulty finding exactly which side quest I was looking for.
Yeah, especially later on.
Yeah, exactly. And number two, it's it's been 100 hours, and I beat all the side quests after about 60. The other 40 have just been from replaying the story missions on different difficulty levels. And even base Hyrule Warriors, I got a lot more entertainment out of. And I do really feel like the game is missing something by only having the main mode to experience. The fact that there isn't a side mode really at all, I think is a sorely missing opportunity. One thing that I was sort of hoping for before the game came out, I actually made a video where I predicted that all of the modern characters would appear in the game, and I guess I was right.
But
one of the things
It's a
I
strong,
talked about,
I guess.
yeah, one of the things I talked about in that video was I thought it would have been really cool if there were a whole bunch of missions, like a separate story mode that took place in between the end of Age of Calamity and the beginning of Breath of the Wild. And obviously that doesn't make sense because of how the story panned out, but I still feel like they could have done something to have some sort of secondary mode to put some time in aside from the main game, because I found that was the biggest disappointment for me in an otherwise excellent game, is that all there was to do was the main story mode, especially considering how excellent adventure mode was.
That's kind of the whole, I mean, more options are always better. And one of the things that Smash fans have, they're very vocal about missing it, but Subspace Emissary.
I'm one of those fans.
Exactly, right? And it was just such a part of Brawl. It's like really the only reason you go back and play Brawl, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
That's why I still
like,
really love
it
it.
was so good.
You mean you don't miss tripping?
Oh, tripping was the best mechanic. More options are always better, honestly. And just even these kind of like silly modes, like even if there were, games nowadays especially have gotten pretty privy to this. Even if you just have like certain missions, like I don't want to say necessarily like daily missions, like, oh, you gotta only do this, but like modifiers to missions that'll be like, okay, at this point, every so often something is going to happen, and that's just like another way to play the game, so to say. And
you kind of
like,
have that with the Blood Moon mission.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
okay, yeah. So I guess
But-
that's good. They kind of implemented that.
Yeah, all that really does is take a regular mission and make it harder.
Yeah,
Fair
that
enough.
mission. I have
And it
thoughts on
makes
that.
the whole
mission.
screen red, which is
Ooh.
nice.
Oh,
That is
Tyler,
different.
I turn on the game and I get scared because it's all red.
Tyler, this isn't in regard to that specific story mission. It's a thing that can start happening. I think it's after you beat the game.
Okay, yeah. I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll take a random level and Blood Moon it. And
Blood Moon it, yeah.
Yeah. But
But
that
like,
that mission was awful.
imagine how fun it would be to, to have like, so you've completed the game, you've done all the stuff, you got the story, you've even done some of the post-game content. At that point, like, how cool would it be to have the option to, here's like a set of like challenge missions, and they're the same missions just with, some modifiers. Like, maybe on one of the missions, I haven't played the game myself, so I'm not really sure how well the mechanics would work, but maybe every time that you used a bomb, the bomb would detonate 3 times instead of just once. But in that one area, just like little modifiers, some help, some hinder, stuff like that. Just things to mix it up. And then there could be, like, oh, I got through this set of missions, and then, okay, well, now I'm going to move on to the next set of missions, which have a different modifier. Just options, stuff like that for really end game stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. The game is sorely missing that kind of thing. The end game content's not lacking, although I guess it's not really end game because you can start doing things like the Great Fairy and Maz Koshia before the end of the game, but most people I know left it till the end game. So the especially like the Terraco mission, it takes a bit to get Terraco, so the end game mission isn't exactly lacking, but it is not even. It's like about 10 to 15% as much as was included in even base Hyrule Warriors, which
Still kind of blown away that we can play as the monk. I'm kind of super excited to see that moveset now.
and he's a lot of fun.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I was freaking out when I saw the Great Fairy, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Really? I actually,
this isn't happening.
I hate the Great Fairy so much. She's just terrible to play as, in my opinion.
I was just like surprised. Someone on the Zelda team, not the Warriors team, really likes the Great Fairy because it was in the original game too, right? Like Hyrule Warriors, it was in that too.
Yeah, you play as all 4 fairies at once, actually, Edible, and they are huge.
Whoa.
They're ginormous. Biggest
They
character in the
prefer
game,
the term
slowest character.
Ick.
That's kind of weird. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so
yeah,
that's my thoughts. The world map, I think, is a little too messy. I wish they would have been added in a way where you can just have certain types of missions on the field instead of just literally everything out at once. The idea was really cool. I just wish they would have had some bonus modes.
Okay, so I think that's about it for gameplay, right? Have we done everything?
I think so.
For the most part, yeah.
I mean, we went on for quite a while. I was not expecting us to have that much to say, but yeah.
Hey,
In fact, we had so much to say that we're going to have to split this discussion into 2 separate parts. So make sure you join us here next time when we get the gang back together and talk all about the story of Age of Calamity. I hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion, and if you haven't already, make sure you go subscribe to Newborn Killick, Edible Incredible, Nehru, and Tyler Townsend. They are all amazing guys, do great content, and if you like my stuff, you're sure to like theirs. Also, if they sent you here, why not subscribe over here as well if you haven't even already? Because, I like to think, at least, that I make some pretty decent Zelda content as well, so... Again, stay tuned to the channel for part 2, coming at you very soon, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you later with more videos. Till then, bye-bye!